Welcome back to the Building a Modern Employer Brand podcast with me, Susanna Rantanen. If you are new to this podcast is for those who want to learn how to build a modern employer brand and master modern talent marketing in a world where your talent's attention is no longer a default. And this episode is sponsored by Talent Marketing School, where I teach you how to master modern talent marketing. As we've all noticed, employer branding has become hugely popular, and more talents like yourself have started to plan and work with employer branding. And in the previous episode last week, I spoke about what is an employer branding strategy and why do you need one if you work in employer branding. But what happens when you have a strategy or a plan for employer branding? What do you need to do next? Well, that's called implementing your employer brand strategy or a plan, and it's an important phase before you actually start executing employer branding activities. And that's what I'll be sharing with you in this week's episode of the Building a Modern Employer Brand podcast. How do you implement your employer brand strategy or plan? Implementing an employer branding strategy means that you prepare and you set everything ready for the execution of the employer branding strategy, which I have to emphasize is a different thing. So most often we just think like, oh, we'll just jump off to the execution phase, but there's actually some implementation stuff that you need to prepare before you just start doing it. And I know that this might sound that I'm nitpicking again, but I only do this. I like to split things into little nodes so that you can understand better what is the difference between sort of micro level phases in this world. It's this work, because I find that when we develop these skills and these capabilities in ourselves, that it's very helpful to understand more in depth into the processes of how to do this. Because if you would happen to notice that something isn't working, if you then look at that something on a macro level and you try to analyze what isn't working or what's not, it's very difficult to understand all the details that goes into it. So that's why I'm nitpicking implementation and execution. And this week I'm going to talk about implementation. In your strategy, you've made some key decisions, which I also teach at Talent Marketing School, such as what are your employer branding goals, how and when do you measure your success in employer branding, who your target audience will be or needs to be, and what are those key messages your employer brand marketing needs to drill into those minds and memories of your chosen target audiences, and in which channels, platforms, and media do you plan to focus your employer brand marketing efforts and resources? These are all very important key decisions that you need to write down and agree upon and confirm before you start implementing or executing anything, because that is the strategy part. When all this is decided and confirmed, and you hopefully also have the budget to accomplish your goals and objectives, you move on to this implementation phase. And this is when you start preparing how you put your employer branding strategy into action, and how do you keep your employer branding efforts active and in line with your strategy and plan. And this is a phase that is easily forgotten about when you budget and plan your resources, such as time, money, tools, pairs of available hands for employer branding. And it is more like a preparatory phase. And once you have done it, you don't really need to be implementing anything regularly. What you need to be doing then is executing regularly. And now you're probably thinking like, oh, tell me what is the difference between implementation and execution? So I shall tell you. So when implementing your strategy and plan, you are setting everything ready for consistent and efficient work, for making sure that you have the capabilities to execute your strategy in practice and perform those actual tasks in your strategic plan. So let me dig a little bit deeper into this for you. So examples of implementation tasks. For example, updating your career site. And this, I would say, is a key implementation task. And probably all of you need to be making some updates to your career site content and messages after you have finalized your employer brand strategy. And I actually have an episode coming about your career site, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about it right now. However, I want to say that updating your career site as an implementation task most often does not mean any huge technical updates on the site. Most often it's like paraphrasing words, paraphrasing messages, taking sort of outdated messages away and replacing those with the new key messages to match your new strategy and plan. Refreshing your images to communicate a change on your employer brand strategy, and replacing too much text with images and other visuals such as icons, graphics, and videos to make your site easier to skim through. And also adding elementary strategic content such as blog posts that are designed to grow awareness and build affinity. And also adding lead magnets, converting your career site visitors either to your employer brand marketing audience or into actual recruitment leads. So this all needs planning and prepping, and it's good to do before you start investing into sharing and promoting your new employer brand marketing messages elsewhere. Because then if people come to your career site and it's completely outdated and has the old messages, then your career site fails to continue the same story and people get confused. There's a conflict between what you said on social media, for example, or elsewhere, and what they see and read on your career site. So, making some updates to your career site is very key implementation task before you start executing your employer brand marketing outside your own website. Building your employer brand marketing photo bank is also a key implementation task, because all marketing these days require visual support. And I would actually say that most marketing these days, the visual element is actually the key element, not the support element, and the text is the support element. So most of you will be doing employer brand marketing online, creating and promoting content on social media. And for that, you will need photos that help you build and deliver your chosen employer brand key messages and help build the desired employer brand image. And this is a very important implementation task, and you need to get this done before you actually start posting content. So you need a photo bank. And I actually have a free PDF called Quick Tips for Building an Employer Brand Photo Bank that you can download on, I'll actually put download link on the show notes page for this episode, modernemployerbrand.com/podcast117 for this PDF. If you follow me on Instagram, which you should do, go to Talent Marketing Pro. It's available. This link to this PDF, it's free, is available on the highlights under freebies on Instagram at Talent Marketing Pro profile. And if you cannot find it, you can DM me on LinkedIn or Instagram and just ask for this employer brand photo bank PDF, and I'll get it for you. Third very important implementation task is updating your social media bios and profile images. So you probably have social media profiles, you've already been using for recruitment marketing and employer branding. So you need to do some updating on your social media bios and profile images after you have confirmed your employer branding strategy. So what should the bios of these profiles include? Very important thing. Who is the content that you post on this account? Who is it for? So your bio should mention your target audience so people can relate. And your EVP should be paraphrased so that it pulls in just the kind of talents whom your EVP should be resonating with. So if you want to attract, let's say, graphic designers, then in your social media bio that you're using for employer branding and recruitment marketing, you need to mention that the graphic designers is your target audience. You need to put it there. It needs to be there. And also what your bio should say, what promise can you deliver through the content on this account? What does a person get if they start following you? Are you sharing tips and inspiration? Are you showcasing life behind the scenes? Are you sharing behind the scenes of your open jobs and recruitment processes? So what you need to do here is go to your profile that you use for this, check it out, and wonder if you should follow the company. What does your bio communicate to an external or a potential follower that they can expect to see on this account? So I don't know why I'm so fascinated about using this example, but think radio station. Is your profile a radio station where you play the top 100 hits, or is it a country music station? And that you need to state on your bio. Then your bio most definitely needs to have a link where you want to direct your audience. And this should not be a general company website homepage. So your target audience needs to be directed as close to your career site or if you use this only for recruitment marketing purposes, then obviously to your open jobs page as possible. And then CTA, that means call to action. So what would you like your audience to do now that they have found you? Your buyer should tell this as well. I want you to do this. So do you have a lead magnet for generating leads to your employer brand marketing or your recruitment funnel? And then you put the CTA, the call to action should say download it or DM your profile with a keyword so that you can send them the link. Your profile can do wonders for employer branding if you put your bio in order. Of course, different social media bios allow different types and different length of content, but use this as tips and guidance for the ideal bio content. And if you didn't get any of this, go to modernemployerbrand.com podcast 117 and you'll have this information there in written. Now, what about the profile images? Again, make sure your bio and images support your desired employer brand image and are in line with your employer brand key messages. And update those if you have more space available for a header image on the bio than just the logo. Because not in all social media you can do this, but on LinkedIn you can do this, on Twitter you can do this on YouTube, you can do this on Facebook, you can't do this on TikTok, you can't do this on Instagram, but in many social media you can. Okay, then planning and organizing your elementary content production. This is also part of the implementation phase. Before you post anything, this is the stuff that you need to do. You need to implement your strategy and plan. Now, content production, I can tell you that it takes a heck of a lot of time. So don't you rush into your social media before you have an employer brand marketing content ready for you to start scheduling and publishing regularly. Because if you just create one blog or one post or one video, it doesn't go that far. It does take your time, but it kind of adds no value because people won't notice it. So start posting only when you have enough content you can share and repurpose at least for 1 month. That will also, if you work always like a 1 month ahead, that will give you enough time to create your next month's bundle of content before the previous month is over. And that keeps your content publishing phase active. That's key to success. And that active content publishing is executing your employer brand strategy and plan. So implementation phase, before you start, you need to create content at least for 1 month before you start executing. And then you keep creating content. It's part of the execution after that. Then you keep creating content always in a bundle for 1 month in advance. Schedule it before you publish it. That's how it goes. That's how you roll it. Now, elementary content, in addition to those photos, the photo bank, are things like blog posts that are and articles, downloadable PDFs, ebooks, videos, podcast episodes that help grow awareness, build employer brand affinity, and convert. And these are obviously in line with your key employer branding messages. But these are awareness, affinity related content and information. And for example, PDFs, ebooks, those help you to convert your audience into your employer brand followers and leads. What you need to do with this elementary content is obviously that you can share them, you can promote them, but what more? You can repurpose these many, many, many more times as social media posts than if you just shared a blog. So a very important part of executing your modern employer brand is repurposing, various content that supports your key messages, but doesn't force you to create completely new content over and over again. Organizing your employer branding execution team, sharing and scheduling tasks and responsibilities is also a very important implementation task. Yes, it shouldn't be just you. And even if you're the only full-time member, you probably have help from marketing communications or, part-time help from your colleagues. So this is something that you also need to do. It's very good to get organized and understand, who does what you expect from people, what they can expect from you before you actually start doing. This is part of creating those processes, how you're going to do employer brand marketing from now on. Also key to organizing yourselves as a group and making sure everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing before. And who is responsible, for example, creating the content? Who's responsible for scheduling tasks? It's who's responsible for collecting and analyzing data. These are examples of, the key tasks within building a modern employer brand and executing your strategy and plan. And these, you need to share these responsibilities. And you need to be scheduling these responsibilities into your guys' calendars so that people actually remember doing those tasks and you actually get to work together and progress, your employer brand strategic implementation execution. Key tasks and responsibilities after the implementation phase are things like ideating and creating new content and posts. How are you going to do that? You need to get organized around this need. Is it one person's responsibility, or are you going to group together and do this? What day are you going to do this of the week? How much time you're going to allocate to it? Are you going to do it weekly or bi-weekly? How are you going to do it? That's the important task of, grouping and or getting organized. Part of the implementation. Also, publishing or scheduling posts that are ready for this according to your content publication plan. This is also, somebody needs to do this. They're not just going to go into social media, by themselves. So who's going to be doing this? Are you, sharing this task that one person is doing it this week, another one next week? Are you going to do it together for an entire month, or how are you going to do it? What is the day when you're going to do it? How much time are you going to reserve for it? Is this a regular event? Should be. You need to get organized. Allocating a little bit of time weekly to engaging and having conversations with your audience online. Very important task. Also, who's going to do it? Or are you going to share weekdays that Mondays it's your task, Tuesdays it's mine, and Wednesdays it's your, and so on. And again, if it's not on your calendar, you're not going to do it, and it needs to be a reoccurring time slot. Collecting data and analyzing your marketing results and success. Also a reoccurring task. Who is going to do this? When are you going to go through the data together that somebody has analyzed and collected already? How are you going to get organized as a group to learn from that data so that you can, improve how you're going to do this? Very important and reoccurring task. If it's not on a calendar, it doesn't get done. And planning ahead, in general, things like creating new elementary content. When do we need it? Who's going to be doing that? Or are we going to sort of order it from someone else? When do they need our brief? Who's going to do it? Do you have budget for it? Or is it going to be done internally? By when do we need it? And so on. So employer brand marketing needs, a fair amount of coordination, planning, managing tasks, managing, participants, schedules, availability of new content for publishing and repurposing. So setting up and getting organized as a team is the key to a key task in the implementation phase. And also, if you don't have a team, if you're going to do this alone, you have limited amount of time. So there's certain activities that you need to get done on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. So you need to schedule those in your calendar as reoccurring tasks because otherwise they won't get done. Implementation helps you to start creating your employer brand marketing processes and systems, resourcing your time, resourcing people, money for the work, and also resourcing time into using data or learning to use data as your guide so that you can improve your processes, your content, and how you do this work in the future. And the more experienced you want to become, adopting the role of an employer brand manager and managing and developing your employer brand marketing skills, your team skills, routines, processes, systems, structures. These are all as important as delivering those results as the actual marketing work. If you want to build your career towards becoming professional in employer brand management, sign up at Talent Marketing School. That's a talent marketing school where I teach online how to build a modern employer brand. And I already have a few courses supporting yourself to take charge of modern employer branding. And I am planning on a program about employer brand management with a certification. So if you sign up at Talent Marketing School, then you'll stay on the loop about it. However, if for any silly reason you are not interested in Talent Marketing School at this point, make sure you subscribe to my weekly podcast email, because then I can still keep you in the loop for any programs, any courses supporting your career development in employer branding and employer brand management that you can decide later. And you can subscribe to my weekly podcast email at modernemployerbrand.com. Okie dokie, folks. That's all for this week. My name is Susanna Rantanen. I teach you everything you need to know about mastering modern employer branding. Come back next week to learn more about how to build a modern employer brand and adapt to these changes that are making it more and more difficult to convert our audiences into employer brand and other talent marketing value. Moi moi.